Hello, good evening, and welcome. I'm Simon Bestwick.
And I'm Gemma Files, and this is No
No
Darkness
darkness but
But
ours.
Ours. So, we are two friends who happen to be horror authors, um, and we're here to talk about stuff we like, and which will hopefully scare you, um, since, after all, that is the point of the action.
Yeah, yeah, that's all. That reminds me, I haven't done my tax return. Um,
Damn
so I
it!
think it's scare me. Too easy, too easy. I know. Low
Yeah.
hanging fruit there. So yeah, so we basically thought that we like to witter onto each other about stuff that we like, and conceivably other people might want to hear it too. So
Yeah. I mean, the good part is that we're both fairly smart, and better yet, that we watch widely, listen widely, read widely, both inside of our genre and outside of it. And what's fun is to suggest a pattern or a catch-all kind of subgenre, and to discuss that.
yeah, which is basically what we figured we'd do. Before we do that, though, I just want to publicly give a big shout out. Congratulations to Gemma. You just won the Stoker Award for Outstanding Achievement in a Short Fiction Collection for In That Endlessness Our End, which is fucking awesome, frankly.
It is fucking awesome, frankly. I
What,
got to come home from the Bram Stoker Con in Denver with a spooky house made of resin in my backpack.
well, that kind
And
of makes
man,
sense.
I gotta say, very heavy, very heavy. But I was, but it was worth it by the end.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
I'm yet to win, and I've never won an award. I've been shortlisted a few times, but
I
never
can't believe
actually.
that. I can't believe that. You should have won a couple of awards by now.
Gosh, shucks, thanks. Well, again, maybe in the future. That I do treasure one of the one review that somebody started reviewing, sort of stuff on the shortlist for one of the awards, and it was not very impressed with my novella, and said this isn't really good enough to be on an award shortlist, but at least it's eligible. You'd be picking over the eligibility, whether some of these others really counted as horror or really counted as novellas or whatever. So naturally, I used that as a quote on
Exactly.
the relevant page on my.
Definitely horror, definitely a novella.
It's not really good enough to be on an award shortlist, but at least it's eligible.
That's correct.
That's what else can you say?
At least
One
it
day, though.
qualifies.
Is
Okay.
this your first? Is this your first award, or is the
No, I won the International Horror Guild Award
Emperor's Old
for
Bones?
the Emperor's Old Bones back in 1999, which was the first time I went to Denver. It looks like a little gargoyle. That award. I won a Shirley Jackson Award for Best Novel for experimental film. And the year after that, because stuff is weird here in Canada, I won it for experimental film um, uh, in the same category at the Sunburst Awards, which
Okay.
is like fantastic fiction. Yeah.
What the hell? No
Yeah.
complaints.
I know. Yep. No complaints at all. So I have in fact won 4 awards. Oh, and I also won the best first novel at the very short-lived Black Quill Awards
That for Book
for
of Tongues.
yeah, Book of Tongues. Yeah.
I'm using the habit of reading sort of something to my wife of an evening when we sort of out about to sort of help her.
Mhm.
These days it's usually a novel. I'm working my way through the complete works of Jack Higgins, basically.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
which is she has a soft spot for, although his chat techniques could get anyone who tried, pretty much any guy who tried them, in hospital or prison. Um, just kind of it's this kind of thing where you immediately know that you like the girl and she likes you, and so you just fling an arm around her waist, pull her to you, and kiss her on the lips, kind of thing. And I'm pretty sure if I
Uh,
tried that,
it's old
I'd be in
school. Yeah, I was
very
watching
old school.
I was watching the Ipcrest file
Oh yes.
the other the other day, and you know, was you know, you can't help but be impressed by Michael Caine's style. But yeah, it's sort of like, I like birds, you know. You're a
Yeah.
cool bird.
Well, I think one of our favourite moments. I mean, she's ready to kill me for this because that one of Higgins. I mean, of course, Higgins passed away a few weeks ago. Astonishing. I mean, and whenever I feel, you know, sort of, you know, that a particular work of mine hasn't made the kind as much of a splash as I think it deserves to, I just remember the fact that he finally became like a major best-selling writer with The Eagle Has Landed, which was his 36th published novel.
Wow.
But yeah, one of what I think is not wonderful book called Night Judgment at Synos has this fantastic character. He's like a Turkish skin diver, sponge diver rather. He's a friend of the protagonist, and
Right.
he's very much kind of a, you know, a lovable scoundrel sort of
Yes.
character.
Come with me to the Casbah kind of guy.
Not quite that bad, but you know, he's definitely a dashing rogue kind of type, and one of those people, you know, if he decides he's your friend, he will kill for you if necessary, kind of thing. But there is a disco where there are a number of single women, many of them sort of middle-aged German housewives who are sort of out on that, and they are quite, and who are, you know, I think the phrase would be up for it. And he sort of says, see her, you see that one, she's giving me the eye. I go dance with her now. I rub her belly and see what happens. And this has just become a bit of a catchphrase in our household, and may possibly be evidence at our future divorce proceedings, or Kate's murder trial, whichever comes first.
As long as neither of you shit on each other's pillows, I think you'll be fine.
We're not even touching the
yeah, and that is as far as I'll go in that direction.
As Jesus said in South Park, my son, I'm not touching that one with a 10-foot pole. But yes, sorry, so bringing me back full circle. I also sometimes read short fiction, of course, including some of yours, and I did read The Emperor's Old Bones to Kate as a bedtime story, and I'm still not sure she's forgiven me for doing so. I'm sure she's a bit worried about me, you know, sort of hanging out with you online in case, you know, I end my sort of like, you know, sort of skeletonized remains turn up in a river or something. So you successfully got inside my wife's head and freaked her out. So
nice. Okay, cool.
Job done.
Yeah, job done. Okay, so the yeah, thank you very much, and yeah, it's an exciting time. I am energized in the best way possible, and
yeah,
you know, hopefully things will come out of this, and I think they will. So what we were going to talk about today came about essentially because we both read All the White Spaces by Ally Wiles.
Yeah. Really kind of very much blown away by it.
Absolutely. Yeah, both of us were hugely blown away by it. It's an excellent first novel, and yeah, quite amazing as a first novel.
So it's set in a kind of alternate timeline where, you know, it's kind of like, basically it's kind of like the back end of the heroic age of polar exploration, and in this timeline, Scott and Amundsen haven't their race to the pole hasn't happened.
Right.
So the South Pole is still unconquered at this stage.
Yeah.
And there's an expedition led by is it Randall?
Yeah, James Australis Randall, I think.
That's it. Yeah. Yes. To go there, and on the heels, there's been a previous German expedition which has vanished. Yeah. And Jonathan, the main character, has basically this was something his brothers often talked about doing, about going on that expedition, and so he's following in their footsteps. And Harry, who was his brother's best friend, as you say, went off to war with them and came back when they didn't, has basically smuggled him on board the ship, heading to the South Pole, and hilarity ensues.
Yes, much hilarity. I had a friend who didn't like it very much because she thought that the main character didn't have a lot of agency. And I'm like, yes, have you read Cosmic Horror before? Because nobody has a lot of agency.
Yeah, it's kind of agent. I mean, the main characters had enough agency to essentially, run away
Yeah.
from home, live a I was going to say
Disguise
dress as a
yourself.
man, but
Yeah.
because I mean, the character is characterized as a trans man,
Absolutely. And
which, and again, I'm never quite sure exactly where the boundary is, because I know quite a few women who would say that they would have been classed as, say, gender non-conforming when they were younger, because they didn't want to do the girly stuff that they wanted to go riding bikes and sort of playing football, whatever. But that doesn't necessarily make you trans.
I do feel that character has never thought of himself as a woman, and that even as a small person with all the parts, that the reason that he looks up to his brothers so much is because he sees them as perfect specimens of the manhood that he aspires to.
Yeah, I think that's kind of definitely the dividing line. Is certainly where the sort of attempted romance that Harry instigates doesn't kind of come off.
Yeah,
Just
exactly.
Like,
Harry thinks of Jack as a woman who has dressed up as a man, and Jack thinks of Jack as Jack.
Jack,
which is in. Yeah, is it Jack?
I think it's Jonathan. Oh,
Jonathan. No, right. Yeah, it is. It's John. John/Jonathan. Yeah. Harry thinks of John as a girl who has dressed up as a man, and therefore fair game for a cis straight dude to fall in love with, and John/Jonathan thinks of himself as John/Jonathan, and is just so happy to be amongst guys who treat him as a guy. I get the feeling that John is queer by those standards, and certainly seems to develop a very emotionally intimate relationship with the only other guy who is in a queer relationship.
Definitely. Which doesn't. Moving initially, of course, this thing is initially he sees that character as a as a threat, as a traitor. It's that thing of he's but of course John's trying to live up to that kind of idea of masculinity that's very much and so he's kind of like, it's like the zeal of the convert in a way. He's kind of like, a real man is patriotic and fought for his country and hates bloody Conchies and Germans and whatnot.
I mean, both his elder brothers signed up for World War I, and they were both killed in World War I. And Harry, who has been friends with John's brothers and with John since they were all little kids, followed John's brothers to war, basically. And he survived and they did not. And certainly it's working off of the old idea that either pole, really, but definitely Antarctica, is a place that's off the map. It's not completely mapped generally. It's a place that is a big white space. The idea is that you can go there and you can make your, perhaps not your fortune, but you can gain glory by penetrating into penetrans ad interiora mortis, right? Penetrating into the dead space, into the place where you are not supposed to go. There is we'll talk about this a little bit more when we talk about The Terror, about Dan Simmons's The Terror, and the wonderful TV adaptation of The Terror, done by Ridley Scott. But what I was going to say is that in the Arctic, there are people living there.
And in the Antarctic, there aren't.
Antarctic, no people. And there is this real feeling that the Antarctic is like the moon. It's as close to the moon as you can come, but it would be a moon that hates you.
Yeah. I mean, this is the thing with it. I mean, because we started with using because from all the white spaces as a starting point, there's this kind of whole subgenre of what you might call frozen horror, or icy horror. I don't know, cold horror. It doesn't a lot of this stuff that obviously happens at the poles, like the Terror, like when Lovecraft's about the Mountains of Madness is maybe one of the foundational texts for this kind of thing. Although, of course, even the opening of Frankenstein has a captain who's trying to penetrate the dead space, as it were, which is when he runs into the two of them. But I mean, of course, you also get kind of there is something about that whole kind of white frozen setting, and you get it in stuff like the Liam Neeson film The Grey, there's a survival horror there, or one of the few slasher films I really love, Cold Prey, the Norwegian movie. There's a whole, I mean, part of it is, I mean, because so many horror stories essentially involve the idea that the people in it somehow cross a boundary, willingly or not, from that separates the modern the quotidian world from something other.
Yeah, and something ancient and something unknowable and something empty. And like I said, when you're talking about the Arctic, that's stupid because you've got Sami people living there, you've got Siberian people living there, you've got Inuit people living there,
A shitload of people living there.
A shitload of people, who cross in and around and back and forth across the Arctic. It's like, yeah, you're right. People aren't living on the floes necessarily, but it's like most people who live in that general area have an idea of the survivability. They're sometimes you're courting it and something goes wrong, but there are ways that you can survive. Whereas Antarctica just seems to be like, why does this even exist? Because there's nothing there but snow and ice and, well, so far snow and
the penguins maybe, but
snow, ice, penguins, and various things living in the dark underneath the black water.
Because they've actually been founding like these gigantic Antarctic lakes, haven't they?
Yeah, exactly.
That I did see, and I don't know if it was true or not. It was a few years ago, before Wilfred Brimley passed away. But some of the scientists discover, sort of strange new life form in the waters under the Antarctic. And there was a tweet that had claimed to be, Wilfred Brimley, trust me, you do not want to do this.
Yeah, exactly. Because whenever anybody finds something, takes a core sample in Antarctica and brings up, it's like, oh, I've never seen anything like this before. Everybody's like, it's the thing. Leave it.
Watched a movie.
Leave it alone. Have you ever watched a movie? Don't do that. Yeah. But humans really want to think that we're extremophiles. We're not. But we're really, really interested in going way too far down into the earth. We're really interested in, swimming through caves that could kill us. We're really interested in going to places that are so cold you can't walk outside, or, places that are so hot that, your suit would melt to you, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And thank God, because, horror, a lot of horror starts with threat, and a lot of horror starts with obsession. And those places are full of threat and obsession. You have to ask yourself, why do you want to go to an empty place? And
it's empty, I guess.
Well, in a lot of ways, yeah. It's like the map fills up. There's no places anymore where here there might be dragons. Yeah. And really, what is the thing except a very, very squishy dragon? In a lot of ways.
It's a monster. It's it's very in a way it's pure chaos, because it is without form.
No,
Oh, well,
not
I
at
mean,
all.
it's just like this constantly shifting, changing,
Yeah, I
chaotic,
mean,
massive.
and again, we'll breach into this a little bit more when we talk about the thing, but which is probably the most famous
Yeah,
thing to come out of Antarctica since At the Mountains of Madness.
yeah.
And in fact, the thing, I think you could make an argument that the thing is kind of like a shoggoth, right?
Yeah,
Because
you could really, couldn't you?
yeah,
It's a
it's
plastic,
formless,
and
it's imitative, it could be quite an amazing biotechnological tool that also happens to have intelligence.
yeah,
Um,
and Carpenter, of course, is quite the Lovecraft fan, so it's
yeah.
you know,
No, it makes a lot of sense to go that way, although it's also much, much closer to the original short
yes,
story.
it goes there
Um,
by John Campbell, Joseph Campbell.
yeah, Campbell, definitely. John Campbell, John W. Campbell.
That's the one, yeah.
Yes, not Joseph Campbell. That would be an interesting hero's journey. The hero's journey
Yes.
in this case is to get infected and turn into somebody else who doesn't know that there's somebody else. Because
Yeah,
that's the thing that I find really fascinating about the thing is that it's pseudopods that it buds off. Each one is a copy of it and a copy of whatever it's imitating. And when MacReady says, well, if I was no, actually, it's not
it's
MacReady.
Childs, isn't it?
It's Childs who
That was an
says,
imitation, a perfect imitation.
how would I know? And the fact is you wouldn't know at all, and thus Peter Watts's brilliant piece of fan fiction, award-winning fan fiction, The Things.
Oh, I think I've read that. I can't remember if I've read that or not.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Is that the one where it's like at the end, and the idea is that both MacReady and Childs are
Yeah.
things, but neither realizes the other ones.
Yeah, is a thing, and they're both things that don't realize that they're things, and they're because everything is a thing and they're all the same thing. There seems to be this sort of back of the head intelligence that they all or personality that they all share. And it is the thing that is looking at all its pseudopods and experiencing stuff through them, but also having its own thoughts. And some, two of which are, oh my God, these creatures must be so lonely. And the other one of which is that, if I want to, if I want to show them how ridiculous this idea is, I'm going to have to rape it into them on a molecule by molecule basis.
Still reminds me of one of the most bizarre threats I ever saw on a YouTube comment thread there. That so it was an argument about music, and someone said this band of shit, blah blah, and someone commented, "I will rape you into intelligence." On the one hand, that's kind of like that's an awful thing, and obviously nobody should be threatening somebody with sexual assault. But at the same time, you're thinking, how does that work exactly? How's it supposed to work?
Well, I mean, again, you could make an argument that brainwashing somebody is kind of like raping their intelligence, raping their mind. Just like it's back to the Ipcris file. My name is Harry Palmer.
But anyway, back to all the white spaces.
Okay, back to all the white spaces. So, John and Harry on Randall's expedition. John is eventually found. He's a stowaway, but he's able to impress himself on Australis Randall. And who, it's like obsession recognizes obsession, game recognizes game, and becomes one of the crew, essentially. They stop talking about letting him off at the last stop pretty quick. But from the very beginning, there is this feeling that there is a shadow on the trip. And there's a shadow on the ship itself. And as they get closer and closer to their goal, which is essentially following the same route that I think the Germans were supposed to be following.
Yeah.
To this, there's this point that people talk about a lot, which actually comes up very heavily in the Korean movie Antarctic Journal, which I believe was written by Bong Joon-ho. Not directed by him, but written by him, and which is very much about, we're gonna go up to Antarctica. We're gonna and try and figure out where the point of no return is.
Yeah.
There is no point on the map where you can say this far and no further, because otherwise, if you keep going, then you will not have enough supplies to get back to where to warm warm places. You will just keep going and you will inevitably die. And and it's a bit there's a bit of crossover as well, because in Antarctic Journal, they are following the track of a lost expedition, which definitely white guys, I believe British guys, I might be wrong, and eventually they sort of find themselves trapped in almost like a loop where they're doomed to play out the same expedition. It's not so much that they see ghosts as they sort of become the ghosts.
Wow, I like that idea.
Yeah, no, and it's on Tubi right now. It's been a while since I saw it, but it's absolutely worth the seeing. And I believe it is still in their international section. So so check it if you want to see people dying in the snow, because who doesn't? Apparently, a lot of people do.
I mean, one of the things that struck me about this whole kind of like this kind of frozen horror thing is there is this, as well as that whole liminal idea of crossing over into some sort of space where here be dragons or whatever. It's
this band of death, this place where humans are just not supposed to go. Yeah, this far, no further.
There's also a stripping away of all the kind of accoutrements of civilization, of a technological society, of everything. It takes away all your reference points, and as you said, you're in an environment that without any kind of supernatural intervention will fucking kill you, one way or the other, in any number of ways. It'll, some if there isn't anything there that will eat you, there is something there that will fucking just basically freeze your bits off.
And when we say freeze your bits off, we are absolutely explicitly correct. And, it's like we've already seen with all the white spaces that some of the crew members have, lost toes and lost fingers and, the tip of a nose or whatever. And, Australis Randall, I think himself has lost stuff. And
scarred down one side of the face from frost.
Where he froze to something and then
jumped into the sea to get somebody out or something like that.
That's right, something along those lines. And so basically, what you're always dealing with on a trip like this, and what you're always dealing with what you're always dealing with when you're writing a story like this is that everything is about management. It's about how small and ostensibly hyper-controlled the interior is, and how huge and uncontrollable the exterior is.
Yeah.
And, that you're fighting against the limits of your own body, the limits of your own mind, and whatever random chaos the world is going to throw at you.
And that's the deprivation element as well, which it's easier to her, kind of like in a different sort of subgenre, but in the world of The Descent. I mean, it's one of the things that Shauna McDonald's character is warned about as he's going down. You can hallucinate. You when you're down there in the dark, there's it causes all sorts of psychological impacts to that kind of being put into what is basically this very inimical environment where you're shut off from a lot of the sensory input that you normally
exactly. You can go blind from sun glare off the ice. You can go blind inside a whiteout because your eyes will freeze. I know. It's like but it's such a, in a lot of ways, it is a very male idea to test yourself against a male and a colonial idea to test yourself as a British person, as a civilized person, to test yourself against the most wild area that you can find, and to test yourself against this challenge, where every fucking step is a challenge, and
to penetrate as you say, the interior, which a very male sort of
yeah, well, there is that. It's like, please don't fuck the snow. Just don't.
Frank Zappa just told people not to eat it, but
yeah,
apparently we have to, do not try to fuck
that. Don't drill a hole in the ice and fuck it. It's not a good idea.
I think you've got a story prompt there.
Yeah, exactly.
So many of your characters are basically driven by wanting to fuck something or be fucked by something.
That's true. That is sadly true. So we've got so the central play out essentially is like, as we move into this area where we're moving into a cycle of complete darkness. The sun goes down and it's not going to come up again for however many months. And you are pitted against this night that only exacerbates your own problems, your own psychological problems. Harry starts seeing ghosts, and John has wanted to see his brothers, and Harry has been seeing his brothers.
Yeah.
And the problem is that every time he sees John's brothers, the brothers are telling him to do things, and spoiler alert, not a good idea. Everybody has somebody that they're seeing. Everybody has something whispering to them. And all the, I don't want to go much further than we already have, because it's an amazing book and you really need to read it. But, the normal routine of, or the normal template of an Arctic/Antarctic horror is that you will lose everything. Everything will be pared away. You will lose your ship, you will lose your fellows, you will lose...
They said you will lose your shit, but that will happen as well.
Yeah, you also lose your shit, quite likely. You will walk into the darkness, you will walk into the blinding whiteness, you will walk into the place that you should not be and find that you should not be there. There's a huge intersection between cosmic horror and Arctic/Antarctic horror, or indeed extremophile horror.
Oh God, yeah. It can bring all these things together on the purely on the physical. There's kind of physical survival horror. There's the psychological impact of it, and then there is this kind of like where we're in this emptiness, this desolation. What else is in this coming out of this void? And I was watching a documentary about sort of rather strange case from the 30s called the Galapagos Affair as well. If you've not heard of it, it's worth checking out. It's a couple moved to live on this very small, isolated island in the Galapagos, and then another couple turned up, and then shortly afterwards, this self-styled baroness showed up with two male lovers in tow, and proclaimed herself to be the queen of the island, I think, and was going to open a hotel, and then she and one of her lovers disappeared. And have never been found. And the other lover eventually persuaded another fisherman to take him off the island, and they disappeared and were later found having basically been wrecked on another island, having died of thirst, which was pretty grim. And then one of the bloke from one of the original couple. The first couple there died, and there was all this debate over whether he'd been poisoned by his partner or by someone else. So there's all these kind of mysteries. Yeah. One of the things
there's this feeling of balance and imbalance. It's like, okay, so one couple is okay, 2 couples are okay, and then 3 couples, one of which is not a couple in a recognizable way,
No.
not okay. And then everything cascades from that. And similarly, I think with Arctic/Antarctic horror, there is this sense of balance versus imbalance, you know.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I was thinking about from this, from the documentary I was watching on it, because it had interviews with
Mm,
with some of the surviving people from that time, or you know, their children, their descendants. And one of them was, you know, when you sort of people go to live on an island or whatever, they're trying to get away from all the problems of, you know, sort of life. But of course, if
mm,
you're part of the problem, or some of the problems are you, then you're just going to take them with you. And when you've got like when you've got this small population, even these kind of small antagonisms can eventually turn into what's effectively warfare. You know,
yeah,
you basically get a war kind of breaking out in this little community, and although they're not like stranded on a little island, in a way they effectively are in all the right spaces, because there,
yes,
you know, it's so you have to create a space, and as you say, it's about management. You have to be able to create a space in which you
a
can
manageable
sustain.
space. Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely, where life can be sustained. And sometimes you may find yourself in a position where you're like, well, Bob's gone insane. Maybe we should just let him run out into the run out into the snow and
yeah,
die, because we can't do anything about that. And Bob might cause other people to go insane, or he might take all the food and hide it, or whatever, whatever. By the way, none that doesn't happen in the book.
no. It's
I'm just I'm
kind of like
blue
the thing.
skying here.
It's kind of like the Everest thing as well, isn't it? That, you know, sort
Yeah.
of you know, when certainly when you get into the death zone, which is,
Yes.
you know, kind of the clue is in the name, really.
Yeah.
You know, if somebody else gets into difficulties, you can't stop and help them, because you
Yeah.
are because at every moment that you are above, you know, 8,000 feet or whatever it is, your body is beginning to die. Yeah, this is, yeah, you have
That's
limited
right.
time to get up that fucking slope, get to the summit, and then get down again. Um,
Speaking of which, we should do mountaineering horror.
oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we should totally do
Oh,
that. Thin Air by Michelle Paver is her mountaineering horror book. And we could talk about Touching the Void as well. But,
yeah.
you know, lay that by.
Yes, yes, you mentioned,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Come back
And with,
before.
you know, with a lot of these scenarios, it's about, you know, who can be brought along, who has to be left behind, who has damaged themselves beyond saving. When do you let go of the Britishisms, of
Mm,
of the colonizer mentality? So let's switch momentarily to the terror,
yeah,
shall
I
we?
was going to say that kind
Yeah,
of the colonizer bit, kind of.
yeah,
We
the
were kind of
colonizer
talking about
mentality.
we were kind of
Yeah,
talking about this a bit before, weren't we? About how they might have survived if they'd actually been able to let go of that mentality to an extent.
basically, yeah, because, you know, I mean, we all know that, you know, not just from Simmons's book or the wonderful adaptation, but we know generally from history that one of the biggest things that happened was that they were essentially poisoning themselves,
Yeah,
with lead cans, and all of the food that they brought along was poisonous, and
yeah,
lead was building up in their systems, and they were afraid of discarding their food because they felt that they could not find food anywhere in they felt that this was a completely unlivable area, and that there was no alternative to continuing to eat poison that happened to have British labels on it. um, and you know, the fact is, people live in that place. You
yeah,
know, it's like they're doing okay. They're, you know, it's like, and what I love about the adaptation is that essentially, the only person who survives is the person who allows himself to be taken in by the eunuch. You
yeah.
know,
Basically,
um,
so then it gives up his identity as Francis Crozier and becomes
yeah,
whatever he's.
exactly. Yeah, and so instead of being an invasive creature, almost like a virus that's upsetting the ecology, that's imbalancing the ecology that he is that he has invaded, he becomes part of that ecology, and therefore survives, and therefore has a child, and therefore builds a life for himself, but not the kind of life where he could go back to the UK. Not the kind of life where he could go back to the Empire and go like, yeah, so I fucked up. It's like everybody died. Sorry about that. Like, please give me another ship.
I think the TV adaptation is kind of explicit on that, because it has. I don't think there's an equivalent scene in the book at the very ending. I think we're going to assume that people have seen that.
Yeah, I think we're going to assume that people have seen.
Where essentially the people turn up looking for survivors from the Franklin expedition. Yeah. He's sitting there, he can hear them, and he doesn't
say anything.
Yeah,
it's like, that's not me. That's not me anymore.
No,
it's somewhat like the difference between Blackbeard and Edward Teach and Our Flag Means Death. Yep, that's me. Edward Teach, born on a beach. Anyway, but there was this wonderful article that came out around the time that the Terror first started running in North America, and where basically they had just found the Erebus and the Terror finally, and they found it by I don't know, talking to Inuk people and going like, did your great-great-great-grandparents ever tell you anything about this? It was like, yeah, actually they did. They said that they were in this area, they go to that area. Oh, fuck. It's like, there they are, stuck in the ice, la, la, la.
When you think about it, this is kind of, even going back to kind of the days when the British Empire was at its height, how many horror stories are there of some brave, whatever, I shall not be intimidated, Brits saying, oh, I think for these silly native superstitions, I shall go into the valley and Jesus fucking Christ! If you're very lucky, the natives will save your arse and pull you. There's there's the H. Russell Wakefield story, The Gorge of the Churels.
Yes,
that's
amazing. That's beautiful. I love that. There's a strong tradition of Indian horror that's developed over the last 20 years. And what I like is that it's moved from sort of imitative Bollywood horror where, it's like what was it? It's like Nightmare on Elm Street, except it's a Betal and or a Vetala. Instead of a dead serial killer, and also there's musical numbers.
Of course there are.
Yeah, exactly. But over the last 20 years, there's been this, upswing of amazing indie horror, I guess. Horror where it's sort of like, no, we're actually making a horror movie. It just happens to be. It just happens to be Indian, man. And one of the best things that I've seen on Netflix, and, it's like, I don't think that actual Indian people thought it was all that great, but I loved it, is this miniseries, I think it's 3 or 4 episodes long, called Betal, where there's this this military group is sent in to help a guy who wants to open up a what used to be a train track going inside a mountain, and it was discontinued, and the local people bricked it up for some reason, nobody knows why. Okay, so it turns out that if you do this, what's inside the mountain is not, say, an easy route from A to B, or I don't know, gold or minerals or whatever the fuck. No, what's inside the inside is a big group of Scots redcoats been there since the Indian Mutiny.
Oh shit.
led by a guy who was a straight up Satanist and has managed to make himself into a betal, which is a type of vampire.
Makes sense.
Yeah, and so you get these zombified redcoats coming out of the, it's like
Oh yeah, I like
yeah,
that.
with pipe and drums,
Oh, fucking brilliant. I love
shooting fucking muskets at people. It's amazing. And yeah, I was just like, yes, woo. Anyway, so, yeah, if you want to see that, if you want to see something that reminds you of that story, the ultimate, no, don't do that. That's a bad idea. And it's even better because it's two groups of Indian people saying, the local people saying, no, don't do that. It's a terrible idea. And the military people saying, get out of my way. It's you idiot. It's like, we've got all this technology.
So there's again, that's kind of another kind of dichotomy. That is the sort of the secular kind of technocratic kind of mindset versus something. I
absolutely,
remember,
but then also you have to factor in the fact that India was very much influenced by being occupied by the British.
Yes,
so
yes,
it's like,
so.
Yeah, hey, strangely enough, it's British people. Fucking British people.
Yeah, we fucked up the whole world. What can we do?
Yeah, not much, unfortunately. British people like hissing roaches. Okay, so this article that I briefly brushed past before we started this interesting sideline thing was one of the most amazing things about it was that, having found the Terror in the Erebus, they continued to ask what knowledge had come down about, so what happened to the people from the Terror in the Erebus. And
a couple of hundred years to get around to thinking of this.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, it's not a fucking mystery, man. It's sort of like Roanoke, right? It's like, what do you think? Did they go to another, were they taken by aliens? Did they fall through a rift in time? Did they go to another fucking dimension? It's like, no. The people who lived in that area were like, oh, you poor bastards. It's like, yeah, you can join our tribe. That's fine. That's okay. And in this particular case, there were a lot of tales that came down from ancestors where they were like, well, yeah, we saw a whole bunch of people who kind of looked like zombies. They looked like dead people. They were all kind of, everything was falling off and their clothes were all fucked up and they looked like they'd been eating each other and they were, really, really thin and they were, and so we hid because we were like, no. It's like, and you said, oh, the White Walkers. I'm like, exactly. That is exactly what that was. It's like, we just went, yeah, I don't know where you guys are going, but you better get there soon because can't do nothing for you, man. It's really, yeah. And it didn't have to get that way. It just did not have to get that way. All you had to do was to, be like, oh shit, we're poisoning ourselves. Maybe we should talk to some Inuk people.
Yeah. People who've actually been living here for generations.
Yeah. Excuse me. Is that maybe some food that we could purchase from you, or perhaps something that we could hunt and eat? It's like, you'd have to speak French, maybe. That could not possibly be a good idea.
Yeah, it always reminds me of the bit in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, where the only person who's, they've got him and they've got Sean Connery, and the only person now at large who could possibly help them is Denholm Elliott's character, and he's like, oh, he knows the whole area, he speaks all the customs, he speaks a dozen languages like a native, he'll blend in and you'll never catch him. Cut to Denholm Elliott wearing a white linen suit with a parasol. I say, does anybody here speak English?
Yeah, exactly. So very sad, obviously.
She said
But
cackling.
yeah, she said cackling, but you know, that's what horror does for me.
Yeah.
Anyways, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful series, and very different from the book in a lot of ways, which I actually think are improvements. Which is the best kind of adaptation for me. You know, maybe I wouldn't think the same thing if I was Dan Simmons, but he's doing fine. So
Yeah.
you know, he doesn't really have much to complain about. Um, except for the things that he
manages.
complains about.
He's still
Yeah, he manages. He's okay. He's like, yeah, someone like James Elroy talking to somebody who was like, oh, Hollywood took my book and they fucked it up. And I said, well, you took the fucking money, didn't you, cocksucker?
Yeah.
Yeah. Or indeed Uncle Stevie being like, no, my books aren't ruined. They're up there on the wall.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Like nobody did anything to my books. Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about some other stuff. Yeah. We have brushed past In the Mountains of Madness. In the Mountains of Madness pretty much premiered the idea of, you know, no, there's stuff in Antarctica. Yeah, except it was all just made by aliens from another world.
Yeah.
You know? And there are, you know, who worship even bigger aliens who live outside the bubble of the universe, and you know, and made these weird Shoggoth things.
Yeah.
Bioengineered them basically, and then the Shoggoths turned on them. You know, so if you go to Antarctica and you go far enough, just far enough, you can hopefully come into an area where amazing cities are made of snow and shit. You know, I'd love to know where those cities made of snow are, since now that we have mapped all of Antarctica.
Yeah. I suppose it was still the last great it was the last unexplored sort of.
Yeah, and that was like in the 30s. So I mean, there's still amazing things, obviously, at either end of the world. Although, in some cases, the amazing things, and this is even more cosmic horror, the amazing things are things like, oh, a hole in the ozone layer, you know? And, hey! And, you know, pretty soon, large parts of it are going to melt, and then then the water level will rise, and I will be living on the 8th floor of what used to be a condo building and is now mainly underwater.
Jesus.
I know. Well, that's what happens when you live in a city that already had to go into the lake and build a lake shore. It's like we're all in the same rapidly heating pot. God damn it. Anyway,
must be a good time to buy a boat to save up for a boat.
Yes, exactly. But some other stuff that I can absolutely recommend in terms of films, The Thing, in terms of short stories, The Things.
Yeah.
You talked about Cold Prey, which you see an echo of the Jotnar. The Jotun, Loki's people, big and ugly, except for him, because he got that Sather, that sexy Sather.
He didn't look like, the guy, the king in Coldplay did not look like Tom Hiddleston, it has to be said.
Strangely enough, but then nobody on Jotunheim looks like Tom Hiddleston, except maybe for his dad, because he was Colm Feore. And we were also talking about Antarctic Journal, now on Tubi, very much worth your time. A book that I'd like to graze past is Dark Matter, a ghost story by Michelle Paver. Michelle Paver has written some of the best, I guess, modern ghost stories that I can think of, aside from, Jesus, Barbara, no. Susan, the woman in black, Susan Hill.
Susan Hill, yeah.
Yeah, aside from Susan Hill, I think Michelle Paver's written some of the best examples of these. And Dark Matter is told from the point of view through diary entries from the point of view of a guy who gets onto a very small expedition up near the Arctic Circle. They're doing a physics experiment, and through a series of mishaps, he becomes the only person who's left to hold down the fort, literally. After one guy develops appendicitis and has to be brought south to be operated on. And it turns out that this place, Gruhuken, is haunted. You know, a couple of people tried to imply that to them, but them being British, they've been like, I don't know what you're talking about. Just stop it. You know? Meanwhile, our poor hero is left alone in the dark with nobody but the sled dogs for company and this fucking ghost. Yeah,
it's been a while since I read it, but I do remember being decidedly creeped out.
There's actually an amazing adaptation that Audible did.
Okay.
And that's very, very worth your time if you want to creep the fuck out of yourself. So yeah, Dark Matter by Michelle Paver. Great example of Arctic horror in the Arctic/Antarctic mode. And you had wanted to talk about Midnight Sun by Lance Campbell. Yeah.
Although arguably, of course, in this case, it's more a case of the Arctic or Antarctic being brought to sort of everyday Britain.
Yes, it's a wonderful example of something that you very rarely see, which is a person being haunted by an experience, and indeed by a landscape. The idea that, you know, I guess the implication is that there's a sort of daemon of the place that this guy has been, and it has attached itself to him and come back to England with him.
Or implicitly some sort of possibly some sort of Lovecraftian entity. I mean, isn't the actual location called Stargrave? Which implies
yes, it is. Yes, of course.
Sort of,
yeah, he's like, oh, something fell from the sky, and you know, who knows? Yeah, I don't know. You know, well, you know, might have looked like a meteorite up to a certain point. And then, yeah, it's like, who knows? Could have been a fungus, could have been spores, could have been, could have been. There have been some really amazing sort of recent attempts at a similar sort of horror. At least one of them ended up on Nightmare, I think. The Nightmare podcast. Oh God, what was it called? So it was in Nightmare magazine. Female writer, and the story itself. It's called something like A Place Where Things Fall from the Sky. And actually, again, built around a queer relationship. But yes, I remember that very clearly. So this is an idea that attracts a lot of people, and understandably so. Like I said, it's, as you said, it's survival horror. You know, and as I said, it's cosmic horror, and it's like the crossover of those two things. And in a lot of ways, it is the least controllable place. Yeah, hyper control versus total lack of control. And that, horror, chaos and obsession. Chaos and obsession are the two things which will always get you in the end, so to speak. In the end and in the butt. So
it's in one of your stories.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the sodomy has gone down on that sounds bad. the overall quota of sodomy has gone down in my work.
One book I really enjoyed was Cold Earth by Sarah Moss, and I really must reread that one because but it's not an excessively supernatural novel, but there's definite tints of it. It revolves around a scientific expedition that's an archaeological expedition to Greenland, to the site of the old Viking settlements. But as each section is narrated by a different member of the party who've all brought their own kind of baggage with them, and at the same time, pandemic has broken out. I mean, this was at least a good decade ago.
Wow, that's great.
Well before coronavirus, but of course, contact with the outside world is being lost, and it even seems possible at some points that they may be the last people left, or the civilization could be collapsing.
Oh yeah, I see it.
They're kind of being haunted by, they're being haunted by their own demons, by the ghosts of the dead Vikings. Whatever. It's I mean, as I say, it's not written. I don't think it's written as a horror novel as such. I doubt that Moss would necessarily regard it as a horror novel, but there are definite, the first couple of novels, that and Night Waking, were both I thought really great, and I've been meaning to read Ghost Wall, which is one of the more recent ones.
Yes, Ghost Wall has been recommended to me by many people. I have it on my Kindle, but I haven't gotten around to it because I have a ridiculous amount of shit on my Kindle, which is not to say that it's shit, but a ridiculous amount of stuff.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Don't say that, Mom. Yeah.
It's well overdue. I mean, I'm well overdue to give that book a reread, because I read it not long after it came out, and was the fact that it's still very much on my mind when it came to sort of thinking of stuff to talk about for this, was very much, it's kind of it's obviously a bit of a testament to the fact that it was obviously pretty damn good. Let's see, in terms of other sort of, I mean, there is bound to be some stuff, about 5 minutes after we finish this, we're going to think, oh shit, how the hell?
What about this? It's like, this is a rich vein of horror. And, I don't think you can mine it in 2 hours. And I don't think you can mine it to the bottom generally. You got to go all the way down and get a core sample. No, and then you have to leave it.
Don't get the core sample.
Don't get the core sample. God damn it!
It never ends well.
But this is one of those. This is one of those things that very easily crosses over into the thriller part of the world. There, a lot of stuff about epidemics, a lot of stuff about archaeology, a lot of stuff about extremo philology, I guess. I can think of a bunch of straight up thrillers, which are Arctic and or Antarctic, where they're set, because the setting is endlessly evocative, but finally also something that we've really only brushed on or really only touched on is the fact that this is where science and the supernatural intersect. And absolutely, even when you're talking about, they're doing a physics experiment, what Paver plays with very well in Dark Matter is the unknowability of things beyond a certain point in physics. We say there is such a thing as dark matter. What is dark matter? Where is dark matter? What is the darkness that we're all trying to penetrate? And what is this empty space that we're all trying to penetrate? It crosses over with space horror. It crosses over with, science fiction. It crosses over with just simple history.
I think a lot of the most fruitful work gets done when you get this kind of blurring of the lines between different areas. I mean, going back to an earlier example, Cold Prey. I tend to find slasher movies quite a hard sell. There aren't that many that I'm keen on. I remember the late Joel Lane telling me that, sort of comparing slasher movies to porn and saying that a lot of the core audience are basically spending most of the time muttering, "Oh, for God's sake, just stick it in her." In both
Stick it in
cases.
and twist it.
Exactly. And if
Yes.
if I want to see someone sticking something in somebody, then I'll go to Pornhub or whatever. It gets the point a lot quicker. Who cares if they fix the washing machine or not? But
Good to know.
no, yeah. But I mean, one of the things I liked about Coldplay, apart from it got away from this kind of infantile, people who have sex must be punished for it by being stabbed to death kind of thing. Most of these characters are in. Well, you've got five main characters. The basic premise for anyone who's not seen it. Five young Norwegian people it's the holidays. They go up into the Jotunheim Mountains to go skiing and snowboarding. They go a bit off the beaten track so that they're not just running into all the tourists. One of them gets injured, and they need to find shelter, and they find an abandoned ski lodge, which has actually been abandoned for a very long time. And unfortunately, it turns out that they've basically encroached on the territory of somebody extremely violent who doesn't like being disturbed. And I remember watching this with a friend of mine whose bent is much more for supernatural horror. And at one point, of course, the killer is just this huge lumbering figure in skins and a sort of scarf and goggles. Brandishing a pickaxe, and as he closed in on one of his victims, my friend said, "I want him to be a troll." And I thought, well, in a way, he almost is, because it is kind of it's tapping into that kind of mythological. This is Jotunheim. These are the mountains of the Jotun, the Jotnar, the giants, the giants, the trolls, the monsters. So. Yes. And effectively, whether this is there are sort of hints, especially developed further in the second movie, that there may be a supernatural element to this killer. But either way, they've strayed again out, while it's not a sort of quite as much of a sort of stripping away of all the accoutrements of the technology as somewhere like Antarctica is. It's still isolated. I mean, they're one of the first things, of course, they try to do, being intelligent people, is to try and ring for help after this guy's injured on their mobile phone. And of course, there's no signal, which is entirely plausible.
Yeah,
if you're stuck
totally
in a fucking
plausible.
mountain range,
it's not one of those, it's, there's no signal, it's like, of course there's no fucking signal.
What got me as well is it had very much, well before the killer appeared, it was very much, I'm invested in this characters, I'm invested in this setting. Admittedly, if you are filming in Norway, you don't really have to do. You can just point a fucking camera, and you've got something. You've usually got something amazing. You've got an extraordinarily. Ruar Uthag, I think I've pronounced his name correctly, as well as Coldplay has directed Escape, which is a brilliant sort of medieval set thriller,
and The Wave.
The Wave, which is one of the best disaster movies I've seen,
and the Burning Sea, and The Event, I think, is the one where Norway is cut off by like a big EMP event. Okay. Yeah.
Well, it sounds like water to hunt down. Of course, Coldplay stars the fantastic Ingrid Bolsa Berdal, or best known to most most English-speaking viewers as Armistice in Westworld. She won the Norwegian equivalent of the Oscar, the Amanda Award for Coldplay.
Interesting. That's really great. Yeah. Because if you push it too far into the supernatural, then you get something like Troll Hunter, Andre Overdal's Troll Hunter, which is equally amazing, and talk about Jotuns. And of course the utterly demented Finnish 1-2 punch, I believe Finnish, of no, it's not Finnish. Anyways, one way or the other, of Dodsnow and Dodsnow 2.
Yes, I think that's Norwegian, because it's got
Dead versus Red.
Yeah, well, of course, there is of course the Finnish rare exports of Christmas.
Yeah, that's right, with the gigantic evil Santa Claus underneath the mountain.
The murderous flesh-eating elves kind of thing.
Yes.
There was just the whole scat. Yeah, but I think we were saying this before with Coldplay, that it's kind of connecting into this kind of mythological tradition, which is in some ways unique to the Scandinavian countries, and that if you go to a lot of European countries, if you want to get that, we're aware of a lot of the Nordic mythology in a way that we're not necessarily of that of a lot of other countries. And certainly if you went to Britain to get that kind of ancient historical, really going back to near to primal as you could get it, you'd be going to what are in British terms comparatively marginalized communities like Wales and Scotland and Ireland, which they're not, which are wonderful cultures and all those. I mean, I'm part Welsh myself, so I have a great attachment to it. But at the same time, these have their own language, their own culture, but it's not the sort of the mainstream. I say,
yes, exactly.
The British English colonialism there. So there's, whereas it's kind of like it's connected kind of to the mainstream. And again, if you went to North America to get the same kind of thing, you'd be going to the First Nations, to the indigenous peoples, whereas it's something that's kind of plumbed into that. But it kind of crosses over from the psychological thriller into a sort of like almost mythological kind of aspect.
I agree. The same way that if and when we talk about mountain horror, we'd have to talk about alpine horror, which because the Alps run across a bunch of different countries.
And you have the real life kind of. I mean, you have the White War, from the World War One, with the war which was fought along the sort of Italy and Austria, Hungary, and the Alps, and there's still bodies that are still kind of like turning up now. But there was an actual fortress carved out of the ice, Marmolada. Which doesn't sound quite as dramatic as it really should as a name. So, what is it? Yeah, they named a fortress after marmalade. That sounds rather British, really.
It's true.
I seem to remember one artillery barrage from the Austrians deliberately caused a massive avalanche that killed a whole bunch of Italian troops. But I mean, that's just there's a fairly fascinating horror story in itself.
Absolutely, and history is a series of fascinating horror stories.
Isn't it just?
Yeah. So, just to momentarily go back to the whole colonizer penetrating into the interior of a place where you shouldn't be. I think the thing to always remember, and it even comes out in what you've said of Cold Prey, is that people from the outside of a place that they find horrifying tend to convert people who learn to live in that place into monsters.
Yeah.
Whether they're monsters or not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, anything that could be native to this environment must be monstrous, kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. It's like it's like in The Terror how a polar bear is pretty horrifying, but a thunbach is 10,000 times as horrifying. Not least because a thunbach was made through shamanistic tradition.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I mean, it's probably another kind of fascinating topic for another time. Is the whole idea of magic as kind of folk art, folk practice, and like so many other kind of folk traditions, oral traditions, song and stuff. It's a way of transmitting knowledge outside sort of the official mainstream kind of channels, and in some ways it can be a way of the powerless getting back at the powerful. Magic
as terrorism.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so this has been so much fun.
Yes.
Oh my God.
I've really enjoyed
it. Guys, if you subscribe to this, if you like and subscribe, this is what you're going to continue to get. To people just yelling shit at each other. And throwing everything into the pot and shaking it up. Because, I realize that we're both, what would you say? We're both definitely already in love with horror, but one of the things that makes me love horror as much as I do is that it is I believe that the concerns of horror are very primal and very universal, and so eventually everything becomes horror.
Yeah.
Everything verges into horror and then hopefully goes back out again.
Yeah.
So which is why it's so wonderful to talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think I suspect I suspect everyone in every genre probably thinks, oh yes, ours is the. I mean, I've seen some very interesting interviews, a couple of interviews with like Lee Child, where he argues that the thriller is kind of like the primal form. But I think sort of being able to kind of to sort of go down to kind of the primal kind of impulse that's at the root of whatever it is you're doing is probably one of the best ways to sort of figure out know how to actually do something worthwhile in it. Of course, as I say, everyone thinks that their genre is the root and the best. But of course, the difference is, of course, that we're right.
Yeah, the difference is that horror really is that thing. It's the big black hole that everything goes into. It has its own gravitational pull. Okay, well, I think that's probably quite enough about that. This has been No Darkness But Ours. I am Gemma Files, and
I am Simon Bestwick.
Okay.
At least I was at the beginning of this. As far as I know, I haven't been assimilated by the thing, and
so as far as you know, as far as either of us know.
As either of us know, could be if you were an imitation, a perfect imitation. How would I know?
I guess you wouldn't. But that's not going to matter for long. We might as well share this drink. So, as will probably happen fairly often, we took a look at what we'd done before we started editing and went, oh, there's a couple of things that need to be talked about. First one is, hey, you know who wrote that story that I really liked?
Where Things Fall from the Sky?
Where Things Fall from the Sky at Nightmare Magazine? It was Ally Wiles. Woo! So, well done, Ally.
And I think you mentioned there was a couple of Inuk writers as well that were worth reading this kind of thing.
Yeah, Karen Loachi, who started out in science fiction and moved on to basically fantasy, sort of alt history fantasy with the Gaslight Dogs. She is at least part Inuk. And Tanya Tagaq, who is an amazing throat singer and activist, is also the author of a book called Split Tooth that she came out with in 2018, which I mainly mention because it is not only partially a memoir, but also partially fantasy. And her stuff is just incredible generally. But there's always so much homework to do, and I think that's something that's that we're going to end up saying over and over and over again. The wonderful world of horror and dark fantasy and whatever is, is just mutating and growing all the time, like a fungus, like fungus that loves the moisture, or like some gigantic, I don't know, mushroom intelligence underneath underneath you.
That sounds about right. That's it definitely grows on you in a very Lovecraftian sort of way.
Cronenbergian sort of way. I used to have a boyfriend who had probably issues with acne, and sometimes I'd look at him and go like this. He'd be like, "Stop!" So that Cronenbergian thing. So there you are. What did you think of the books and films we were talking about, and what classics did we forget to mention? Let us know in the comments below.
We hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you did, please hit the like and share buttons, and you can find us on YouTube, Stitcher, Anchor, and SoundCloud.
And if you want to support the podcast, you can always make a one-off donation over at our Ko-fi page or subscribe on our Patreon for access to exclusive content and get the heads up on what's coming next by finding us on Twitter or checking out our website at
nodarknessbutours.wixsite.com. /podcast.
No Darkness But Ours. Named after a very, very old short story of mine that I wrote when I was in high school.
No way.
No, it's true. Yeah, I did write that when I was in high school, actually. It was
Well,
you can tell because I've got a version of Norman Bates in there, right? So it was during my extreme psycho fan phase.
The less said about the stuff I wrote when I was at high school, the better, really.
Okay. Well, this has been wonderful, as I said, and we're looking forward to doing it again. Hopefully, you will come along with us into the dark and the cold and the wet.
When no one can hear you scream.
Exactly. The fungus loves the moisture.
Well, that will either get us a whole bunch of new fans or have everyone who's listened to the podcast running away screaming, one or the other. There's not much middle ground.
Nope. No. In fact, there's none, I think.